My bossy older sister tries to dictate how I use her inheritance, clueless that our parents left everything to me and a last minute will change. Some background: my sister, let's call her Karen, because of course, has always been the golden child in our family. She's smart, successful, and has never let anyone forget it. I, on the other hand, was always seen as the black sheep. I struggled in school, took a few years to find my footing in life, and generally didn't live up to the high expectations set by my overachieving sister. Our parents, while loving, definitely showed favoritism towards Karen. They funded her Ivy League education, bought her a car when she graduated, and even helped with the down payment on her first house. Meanwhile, I had to work my way through community college and take out loans for my bachelor's degree. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bitter about it. I'm proud of what I've accomplished on my own, and I've always been more independent than Karen. But it did create a dynamic where Karen felt entitled to our parents' resources, and they rarely said no to her. Fast forward to last year. Our parents were in their late 60s and in generally good health. Karen had been pestering them for years to set up a will and get their affairs in order. She even recommended her friend who's an estate lawyer to help them out. I later found out that she had been dropping not so subtle hints about how she should be the executor of the estate and how she would take care of everything when the time came. What Karen didn't know was that our parents had become increasingly concerned about her controlling behavior. They confided in me during one of our weekly dinners, which Karen rarely attended because she was too busy, that they were worried about what would happen to their assets if Karen was in charge. You see, despite her financial success, Karen has always been terrible with money. She lives way beyond her means, constantly upgrading to bigger houses and fancier cars. She's been through 3 divorces already, each one leaving her a little more bitter and a little more in debt. Our parents were afraid that if she inherited their estate, she'd blow through it in a matter of years. So, they made a decision that would change everything. Without telling Karen, they met with a different lawyer and redrew their will. They left everything to me, with the understanding that I would use the money responsibly and help out Karen if she ever truly needed it. I was shocked when they told me. I tried to argue that it wasn't fair to Karen, but they were adamant. They said they trusted me to do the right thing and that they knew I would honor their wishes. Tragically, just 2 months after they changed their will, both of our parents were killed in a car accident. It was devastating, and I was in no state to deal with the legal implications of their decision. Karen, however, jumped into action immediately. She contacted her lawyer friend and started making plans for the estate before our parents were even in the ground. She called me constantly, pestering me about documents and accounts, insisting that she needed to get everything in order. I was still in shock and grieving, so I just went along with it at first. It wasn't until the day of the will reading that everything blew up. Karen waltzed into the lawyer's office like she owned the place, already rattling off her plans for her inheritance. She talked about selling our childhood home, liquidating our parents' investments, and even mentioned using some of the money to pay off her latest ex-husband. The lawyer, a kind older gentleman named Mr. Thompson, listened patiently to Karen's tirade before clearing his throat and beginning to read the will. I'll never forget the look on Karen's face as Mr. Thompson read out that I was the sole beneficiary and executor of the estate. Her jaw literally dropped, and for once in her life, she was speechless. Then came the explosion. Karen leapt to her feet, screaming that there must be some mistake. She accused me of manipulating our parents, of taking advantage of them in their old age. She even suggested that I had forged the will somehow. Mr. Thompson calmly explained that the will was legally binding and had been witnessed and notarized. He also mentioned that our parents had recorded a video explaining their decision, which only made Karen more furious. She turned on me then, her face red with rage. "You sneaky little BCH, she hissed. "You've been planning this all along, haven't you? Playing the sweet, innocent daughter while you wormed your way into their good graces. Well, I won't stand for it. I'll contest this will if it's the last thing I do." I was still in shock, barely able to process what was happening. All I could do was sit there and let her rant. Mr. Thompson eventually had to ask her to leave, threatening to call security if she didn't calm down. As she stormed out, Karen shouted over her shoulder, "This isn't over. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." And boy, did I ever hear from her lawyer. Over the next few weeks, I was bombarded with threatening letters and phone calls. Karen's lawyer friend was trying every trick in the book to invalidate the will, claiming everything from undue influence to lack of testamentary capacity. But our parents had been smart. They had undergone a full psychological evaluation before changing their will, and the video they recorded clearly showed they were of sound mind and making their own decisions. Still, Karen wasn't giving up. She started a smear campaign against me and our extended family and social circle. She told anyone who would listen that I had manipulated our poor, senile parents into cutting her out of the will. Some people believed her, and I started getting nasty messages from distant relatives and old family friends. The worst part was, I couldn't even properly grieve for our parents. I was so caught up in this legal battle and trying to defend myself against Karen's accusations that I didn't have time to process my own loss. It all came to a head about 2 months after the will reading. Karen showed up at my house unannounced, barging in as soon as I opened the door. "All right, you little thief," she snarled. "I'm willing to be reasonable. Give me 70% of the estate, and I'll drop the lawsuit. It's more than fair, considering I was always the one who took care of Mom and Dad." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Karen," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "you know that's not true. You barely visited them in the last few years. And this isn't about fairness or who deserves what. It's about respecting their wishes." She scoffed. "Their wishes? Please. We both know you must have done something to convince them to change the will. What was it? Did you lie about me? Make up some story about how I was in trouble and couldn't be trusted?" I took a deep breath, deciding it was finally time to lay all the cards on the table. "Karen, Mom and Dad changed their will because they were worried about you. They saw how you handled money, how you jumped from one expensive purchase to another, how each divorce left you more in debt. They were afraid you'd waste their entire life's savings in a matter of years." Karen's face went pale, then flushed with anger. "That's ridiculous. I'm successful. I make 6 figures. How dare you imply I can't handle money?" "Making money and managing it are 2 different things," I pointed out. "Look, I'm not trying to judge you. But Mom and Dad made their decision, and I intend to honor it." "So that's it?" Karen sneered. "You're just going to keep everything for yourself? Some sister you are." I sighed, feeling the weight of our parents' expectations on my shoulders. "No, Karen. That's not what this is about. Mom and Dad left everything to me because they trusted me to do the right thing. And part of that is helping you if you ever truly need it." Karen's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that if you ever find yourself in real financial trouble, not because you want a new car or a bigger house, but because you genuinely need help, I'll be there for you. But I'm not just going to hand over money for you to spend however you want. That's not what Mom and Dad wanted." For a moment, I thought Karen might actually listen. I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. But then her pride took over, and her face hardened. "I don't need your charity," she spat. "Keep your blood money. I'll see you in court." With that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. True to her word, Karen did take me to court. The next 6 months were a nightmare of legal proceedings, character assassinations, and family drama. Karen threw everything she had into trying to invalidate the will, but in the end, it held up. The judge ruled in my favor, upholding our parents' last wishes. Karen was livid. As we left the courthouse, she hissed at me, "I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family." I wanted to point out that she was the one who had turned this into such a brutal fight, but I held my tongue. There was no point in antagonizing her further. In the aftermath of the trial, Karen cut off all contact with me. She blocked my number, unfriended me on all social media, and told our extended family that I was dead to her. It hurt, but part of me was relieved that the fighting was finally over. I threw myself into managing our parents' estate, determined to honor their memory and their wishes. I set up a charitable foundation in their name, focusing on causes they had cared about in life. I also established a trust for Karen's kids, my niece and nephews, ensuring they would have money for college and a good start in life, regardless of their mother's financial situation. As for the rest of the money, I invested it wisely, living off the returns rather than touching the principal. I continued to work my job, not wanting to become dependent on the inheritance. About a year after the trial, I received a surprising call. It was Karen's oldest son, my nephew Tommy. He was 17 and about to graduate high school. "Aunt Sarah?" he said hesitantly. "I hope it's okay that I'm calling. Mom doesn't know." "Of course it's okay, Tommy," I assured him. "What's going on?" He took a deep breath. "I got accepted to State University, but Mom says she can't afford to send me. She told me I'd have to take out loans for the whole thing. I know you and Mom aren't talking, but I was wondering, is there any way you could help?" My heart broke a little. This was exactly the kind of situation our parents had wanted to prevent. "Tommy, your grandparents set up a college fund for you and your siblings. There's more than enough to cover your tuition and expenses." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Tommy spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "Really? But Mom said." She told us you had taken everything, that there was nothing left for us. I sighed, feeling a mixture of sadness and frustration. Tommy, that's not true. Your mom and I have had our differences, but I would never take anything away from you kids. You were always meant to have this money for college. We talked for a while longer, and I explained how he could access the college fund. Before we hung up, Tommy said, "Aunt Sarah? Thank you. And I'm sorry for how Mom's been treating you. Some of us know you're not the bad guy here." Those words meant more to me than I could express. Word must have gotten back to Karen that I had helped Tommy with college, because a few weeks later, I received a terse email from her. No apology, no acknowledgement of her previous behavior. Just a curt message asking about college funds for her other 2 kids. I replied with all the information, resisting the urge to point out that if she had just talked to me in the first place, we could have avoided a year of legal battles and family strife. Karen didn't respond, but over the next few months, I started receiving occasional updates about my niece and nephews from their dad, Karen's second ex-husband, who had always been a decent guy. It wasn't much, but it was a start. It's been 3 years since our parents passed away, and things are still tense with Karen. We're not back to being close, and I doubt we ever will be. But we've reached a sort of détente. She's stopped bad-mouthing me to the family, and I make sure she's kept in the loop about any decisions regarding our parents' estate. I've stuck to my promise to help her if she ever truly needs it. Last year, when she lost her job during a company downsizing, I covered her mortgage for a few months until she got back on her feet. She didn't say thank you, but she didn't refuse the help either. As for me, I'm doing my best to honor our parents' memory. The charitable foundation is doing well, funding scholarships and community programs. I've set up a system to ensure that our parents' assets will continue to benefit our family for generations to come, not just be squandered in a few years of extravagant living. Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing. Maybe it would have been easier to just split everything with Karen 50-50 and wash my hands of the responsibility. But then I remember the trust our parents placed in me, and I know I made the right choice. It hasn't been easy, and it cost me my relationship with my sister, at least for now. But I sleep well at night knowing that I'm fulfilling our parents' last wishes and securing a future for our entire family, not just myself. If there's one thing I've learned from this whole experience, it's that money has an incredible power to bring out both the best and worst in people. It can tear families apart, but it can also be a tool for doing good and creating a lasting legacy. I hope that one day, Karen will understand why our parents made the choice they did. I hope she'll see that this was never about favoring me over her, but about ensuring their hard-earned assets would be used wisely and for the benefit of the whole family.